Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you how to make a delicious apple galette. It's kind of a cross between an apple pie and an apple tart. So if you like making both of my recipes every year and you want something a little bit easier than my tart or my pie, this is the ticket. So you first want to add your flour to a big bowl. So I'm just working with all-purpose flour. It's 2 1/3 cup. All the measurements can be found in the description below or on my website. And then you also want to add 2 tablespoons of just plain granulated sugar and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then you just want to whisk that up until everything is combined. And the best part about this crust is you do not have to drag out the food processor. That's what I love about it. Then I also have a cup of butter that is chilled and has been diced into little cubes. I cut this before you were coming and now I can't get it out of the bowl. There we go. Now using your fingers, just go in there and pinch the butter in between the flour. The idea is you want to incorporate that butter with the flour and end up with like a course meal. This is also a great dessert idea if you're a beginner baker and you're a little intimidated by an apple pie. Go with the apple galette because it's a lot easier, I think, to put together. In fact, I have a menu that I did on Kid Community years ago called Thanksgiving for Rookies, and I know a lot of you guys have asked me for those recipes, and unfortunately they're not on the Kid Community website anymore. So I put them together in a little PDF, and you can click the link in the description and download the PDF if you want all those recipes. It's a good one. It's very similar to what I'm doing this year. I'm keeping it easy. We're gonna add 1/3 cup of very cold water to this mixture. I like to use these Danish dough whisks for whisking up dough like this or scone dough because it allows you to not over mix and it also doesn't get stuck the way a whisk would. I'll leave you a link in the description. Or now I can even tag it with the new YouTube feature. So if I find it there, I'll tag it for you. And then you just wanna turn it into a ball and then flatten it into a disc. You do want to refrigerate it though, because it'll be really hard to work with in this state. I would do at least an hour or overnight is even better. You could actually make this the day before and be all ready to go. In fact, that's how I do it. So for this recipe, you're going to need 6 gala apples. So 3 we're going to use for the compote and the other 3 we're going to put on top of the galette. So the compote is super simple to put together. In fact, if you've made my French apple tart, it's the same recipe. I love it. Why mess with success, right? Once you get your apple all peeled, then you just want to cut it into chunks. Then go ahead and add your apples to your pot. And then we're also going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 of a cup of apple juice, and 1/4 of a cup of water. Now, if you don't have any apple juice in the house, you could just use a 1/2 cup of water. I like the apple juice just because I always have it in the fridge and it just adds a little bit more sweetness. The other thing that we're supposed to add in here is lemon zest. For some reason, I thought I had a lemon. I started shooting and I realized I don't have a lemon in the house. So trust me, the zest of 1 lemon also goes in here. It just brightens up the compote and gives it a little bit more flavor. Okay, then you want to put this on a medium-high flame and cover it. And this won't take but maybe 5 minutes. Basically what we're looking for are those apples to become nice and soft and tender. Then we are going to go in with our potato masher and mash them up. So you don't need to like pulverize it. You just need it to become kind of chunky, like a chunky applesauce. So the compote and the dough are 2 things I like to do a few days ahead of time. Then I'm all ready to go because I think this galette is best baked the day of Thanksgiving, and then you can leave it at room temperature. The crust will just be flakier, the apples will be more tender, the whole thing will just be more delicious. Then for the apples on top of the galette, this is how I like to cut them. I think this is probably the easiest way to go, but you could do a really pretty escargot pattern like I do with my French apple tart if you wanted, you know, to really impress. Or if you had a lot of time on your hands. I think that this is also pretty and is not as much work. So basically what I did is I just cut off the 2 sort of apple cheeks, as I like to call them, and then you're left with these little skinny bits, which I would also cut off because we may just need those to tuck in, or you might have some extra apples for snacking, okay? And then you're just left with the core. Then put the flat side down, and you want to keep these little apple cheeks together because this is what's going to create the pretty design, the fact that they're all the same size. So you can just leave them just like that and transfer them to a plate. So I'm just going to put a little bit of flour on my board. If you made the dough the night before, I would just leave it at room temperature for about 30 minutes because it'll be a lot easier to roll out that way. And then also give special attention to the edges. Just give it, you know, a good little rollover because It's going to be double crust, so you don't want that part too thick. When your galette is done, you want to be able to slide it right off onto your cutting board or however you're going to serve this. If you have one of those rim-line cookie sheets, it'll be really hard to lift it off and you might actually tear your galette in the process. So I do recommend something flat like this. I'll link to it in the products as well as below on Amazon in case you need one. There you go. They're not expensive. All right, then we are going to take our dough and flip it over our rolling pin and plop it on here because we want to assemble our galette on this cookie sheet, because once it's assembled, it's really hard to move. So it's better to just have it all ready to go so you don't have to move it. My other recommendation is to get yourself a dinner plate, 12-inch in size, and you just want to make an impression somewhere in the center. This is what you're going to use to guide where you're going to put the compote and where you're going to put the apples. And then everything that's left on the side is going to be your crust. You know what I should have done is just put a little flour on the plate. Then it won't stick. I got lucky. Then you can go ahead and add the compote just in the center. You want it equally distributed, so just work its way out to the edge there. Now for the fun part, the apples. You just want to place them in close to the edge like that, and then lightly separate them, just giving them a little bit of space in between so that you can kind of fan them out. And this is another reason why I leave the skin on, is because you'll just have a prettier shape and the color of the red is really nice against just the beige of the apples. So I like it that way. If it bothers you, you can peel them, but you won't have this uniform shape of the apple. Plus there's all that fiber. So now for the crust. You can trim a little bit if you feel like one of the sides is too much. Like I think this side, I might just trim a little bit, like so. Just so that all the crust is uniform, because it will bake at the same rate that way. There, and you won't have certain sides that are a little bit too doughy because it's too heavy. Just fold this up just to the line here, and you want to overlap it like that. Again, just to the line. You can go a little bit over the applesauce if you want. The last thing you want to do is just brush the crust with a little bit of heavy cream, and then take a little bit of this turbinado sugar. It's also called sugar in the raw. I love it because I think it adds a nice little crunch on top of the crust. Then it is going to go in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 55 minutes, almost an hour. So a few minutes before your galette is ready to come out of the oven, you do want to just melt a little bit of this apricot jelly, because we are going to brush this all over the top of the apples as well as the crust to give it a little bit of shine. And then the finishing touch is a little dust of powdered sugar. Not too much, because we still want to see those apples. So I usually serve it on a big board like this. I just think it's a fun way to present it on a dessert buffet. It can become kind of the centerpiece. You can slice it into wedges and serve it with vanilla ice cream. And when you bite into this galette, you will see how flaky and delicious it is, mixed with that apple compote and the tender apples. It's a fantastic Thanksgiving dessert idea. And if you would like to attempt the apple pie and my French apple tart recipe, I will link to those right here. I'll see you over there. Bye-bye.